All right. Hey, Ken, how are you?
Good. How are you, King?
I'm doing well. So nice to see you again.
Nice seeing you as well. It's been a minute.
I know. How are the holidays?
They were good. Pretty laid back. Got to do some fun stuff around Chicago, and so had a good time with family and friends. It's good.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Anything that really stood out?
So we're pretty close to Wrigleyville, and they turned the inside of their stadium into a winter wonderland with some amusement rides and stuff like that. So that was it
That's
was really cool to be out on the actual field and seeing what it looks like down there. So that was a lot of fun.
that's so cool. That sounds
Yeah.
great. Yeah, my break was just about my family. I spent all the time I could with my wife and my two daughters. One's 5, the other one's just turning 2. But honestly, it felt like we did nothing, but it felt like we did everything.
Sometimes you
And
need those breaks.
yeah. When we from reading books to building pillow forts to then jumping off of sofas on 2 pillow forts, and then random dance parties. It was wonderful in every aspect. But I will tell you, my wife and I had to do a whole lot of cleaning up every night after we went to sleep, and that's
Yeah, the
that's never
aftermath.
that much fun. Yeah.
Sounds
But
like a
Ken, thank you
particular
so much for
holiday.
joining. I know we have a lot of people who've joined already. I say we just dive in. What do you say?
Let's do it.
Okay, excellent. So hi everyone, my name is Akin. I lead customer success here at Observe. I'm so excited, so grateful to be hosting this webinar today on behalf of our amazing Observe team. Happy New Year to all of you, and thank you for letting us be part of your day. I promise we will make it worthwhile. And while I do that, I want to introduce my co-host and my partner in crime today, Ken. Ken, if you can take a minute or two, please introduce yourself, share your responsibility at Figo.
Yeah, thank you so much, Akeem. Ken Fausel, I manage customer experience with Figo Pet Insurance. And I've been with the organization for just over 2 years now. We are a pet friendly office when we're in the office. So up here you can see my best buddy, Zeppelin, hard at work when we went to the office one day together. And so, yeah, that's kind of what we do. We bring our dogs in and try to get some work done on the side.
That's amazing. I mean, how can you talk about Figo Pet Insurance without having a picture of Zeppelin? I'll share a story for the rest of the group here. We had a chance to meet the Figo leadership team midway last year, and we pleaded with Ken prior to actually going on site for him to bring Zeppelin to the office, and he was very gracious enough. And Ken, Zeppelin was by far the best QBR guest we've ever had. He definitely lightened up the room and just made things so much more jovial. So thank you for introducing us to Zeppelin today as well.
My pleasure.
And I see we have some folks joining from all over the world. So thank you for joining from Dallas, Massachusetts, Michigan, Florida, San Diego. I see someone from South Africa. So amazing. Thank you all for giving us your time today. Before we jump in, I'll just set the stage. Mics will be turned off for during the session, but we want to hear from you. We want to hear your questions and your comments. So please enter them in the Q&A section to the right hand of your screen. And then secondly, webinar materials along with this recording will be available after the session today. And let's just quickly go through the agenda. We've kept it extremely simple. We'll talk about Figo's ROI story. We'll touch on the automation journey, the key benefits, and then lastly, I think it's very important for us to talk about learnings, and then we'll wrap it up from there. But before we get into the next slide, we all know that contact centers are treasure troves for customer insights. But the challenge is really translating all of these interactions into 100% visibility, and more importantly, cost savings. And you can't really bridge that gap without the help of automation. And that's why we're here today. So, as we go through this story, please enter your questions, but I really want to do things a little different. We're going to start off with the punchline. We want to talk about the amazing results that Ken and the Figo team saw, and I'll cover those real quick, and then we'll move into the rest of it. But as you can see, they were able to achieve 100% visibility into every customer interaction. Now that includes their customer service calls as well as sales conversations. And it also includes two mediums, both voice and with chat. And in doing so, they were able to realize over $700,000 of savings per year. Essentially what it would have cost them to analyze their entire volume of customer interactions for that year. In addition to that, they also saved over 27,000 hours just by using automation. And so, the reason I share this is at Observe, we make it our mission to turn conversations into actionable insights. And those actionable insights drive better performance for your team and better performance for the business as a whole. And so with that, I want to dive in. And Ken, if you can, please tell us a little about Figo, your contact center, and then also the key pain points that you've experienced prior to going live with AutoQA.
Yeah, so Figo is a pet insurance provider here in the US. We are living in a market that is very fast with its growth. In the US today, the penetration of the market is only about 3%. And so we understand that what we do with our customers and the interactions we have is really going to make or break us in this market as it grows. As you had said, my team specifically handles all interactions with our customers, from service to sales to retention, and those are all either written or in voice. Currently today, we have about 30 agents that are handling those customer interactions. In the last quarter, we handled about 80,000 or so interactions, and of those, 22,000 of those were voice. We hold ourselves to a very high standard with servicing, and so we managed to land at a 93.5% of our calls being answered in 20 seconds or less. Wow. In the last quarter. And so with all that being said, everything that we do has to be focused on being effective and efficient so that we can continue to move forward in this market. As far as some pain points, not so much with Figo, because when I joined Figo, there wasn't a quality management program, but in my experience of managing large contact centers, I always had the pain points of us only looking at a small percentage of the actual interactions that are happening. And then, having the requirement of making very large business decisions based on just a couple of percentage points that we were listening to from those evaluations. Being in the insurance space, regulatory compliance violations can be awfully expensive. So not having a very clear line of sight into if those regulatory items were being handled properly on our interactions or not, gave us a little bit of heartburn, and we needed to make sure that we were seeing that more clearly. And then, again, because it's such a fast-moving market, we need to know exactly what's happening at the very front line as soon as it's happening. We need to make business decisions very quickly if we plan on staying ahead of the curve.
Well, Ken, what really stood out in what you said earlier is how quickly you try to answer phone calls as they come in. And so I love that you've taken the talent that you have and applied it to drive better customer experience, and then really leveraged AI and automation to take care of some of the behind the scenes work. So thanks for sharing that. And I'm sure folks in the audience can relate to these pain points as well. So let's talk about what it was that really drove your decision to automate, and what did you care about the most? What insights were you trying to gain through the conversation data?
Yeah, so we wanted to make sure that we understood the sentiment of our customers and how those conversations are happening. We wanted to hear directly from them, and again, it is very difficult in a conventional quality management program to get a true understanding of the trends that are coming through in the conversations with your frontline staff. And then the other thing, again, just to reiterate, we are in the insurance space, and so we can make mistakes, and that can be super costly. So we had the choice of either going down that conventional path or deciding to go down a technology path. With Figo, we definitely consider ourselves a technology-first company. That was our claim to fame when we first entered the market, and this gave us an opportunity to pull that through every facet of our business and it not just be outward-facing. There are some business-critical KPIs that we were focused on when we were deciding what our quality management program was going to look like. Retention of customers is, I think, something that is top of mind for almost every business, and it's no different for us. So we wanted to find a way where we could really hone in some data and understand what cancellations were being driven by, and provide our agents with that training. And then the customer satisfaction part of it, again, for people that are in the customer experience world, we live and breathe by that. That is what we are always aiming to do is creating the best experience possible. But saying that and having data and data analysis to kind of point you in the right direction on how to actually achieve that is changing the entire way that we think. Yeah. And then again, the compliance part of it, making sure that we're not getting stuck with any large fines or anything of that nature. So we wanted to make sure that we could keep an eye on that. And then overall tracking the agent performance from start to finish and making sure that we are focusing our efforts in both coaching and training in the right areas.
Wonderful. Well, I want to bring up one point that's very unique with your story, right? Which is what I've seen with our customer base is we often meet them in this initial manual stage, this manual operation stage. And then there's a transition to, becoming fully automated. But you chose to go straight into the automation stage from the beginning. And so I would love to hear your story, what really drove you to make that decision?
Yeah. When I joined Figo, calls were being evaluated kind of ad hoc, and when there was any sort of escalation, they would be reviewed. But there wasn't necessarily a quality management program. There was no quality team. So I did have the advantage of coming into a clean slate and got to decide how to build this from the ground up. But also, when I started my journey on figuring out how we were going to do this, I thought I had to have a team, and I was just going to find some technology to kind of help that team along. When I learned about Observe.AI and saw that automation was actually a thing, that drove my decision very quickly, because I knew what would take me a couple of years to get to would now only take us a few months to get to. And so again, we're in a very fast growing market. We don't have time to wait and build things from scratch and reinvent the wheel all the time. So having automation as something that was available to us, it made that decision pretty easy.
Amazing. Well, thanks for sharing. So I think it's a perfect transition now into the benefits that you've experienced so far. And so maybe we'll touch on each one at a time. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. So the targeted coaching and improved efficiency was the first one that we had talked through. We wanted to be sure that when things were not happening the way that we wanted them to happen on interactions, that we were not pulling every single agent off of the phone to do mass trainings if everybody didn't need that. We also wanted to make sure that we could identify any trends. So was this a certain class? Was it a certain call type that was causing it? And so with Observe.AI, we're able to pull in that data and the analysis behind that very quickly. And so that way, if we only need to coach one or two agents, we can spend the effort on that. But if we need to train the entire staff, we also can do that as well. This has also helped our training staff, because as soon as we find these areas that need to be improved upon, we're able to go back into training class and make sure that the next new hire training class is being trained properly. It also gives us the ability to show improvement. So when I'm talking to my leadership team about issues that we might be having, I need to also go to them with a measuring stick and say, here's where we were, this is what we did, and here's what the outcome is. And so Observe.AI has really given us the power to do those things.
Yeah, absolutely right. Like having, being able to understand trends at a team or organization level is very important. But just as important as that is being able to see that at an individual level. And so I applaud the focus in kind of doing both. Let's jump into combating cancellations, and if you can tell us more there.
Yeah, so just like any insurance provider, we have a policy management system, and so when you cancel a policy, you select a reason. Those reasons are very one note. They're very matter of fact, and so what we're able to do with Observe is identify and flag in calls the reason for the cancellation, but then also looking at the sentiment that's happening in that call. And for that reason, we're able to tell our leadership team truly what was controllable versus not controllable. So you're going to have some form of cancellations that come through that you don't have any control over, and that's got to happen. It's part of the business. But we wanted to make sure that where it was controllable, we could take that information and help agents with how to overcome objections, different ways to work with the customer to get them to stay with their policy. And so that's what we've done with the cancellations part that we've have set up as far as a moment, is we use that as a coaching opportunity to really share with our agents where they might be able to improve their conversations.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And I want to move on to the next piece, which is something that we hear a lot and customers want a lot of clarity on, which is really like scoring agents fairly, but then also doing it at scale. So how did you all conquer that?
This one, this has always been top of mind for me. Knowing that we focus a lot of our energies on coaching our agents. And we've all heard it when we're sitting in the room doing that coaching session. You just pick bad calls. And there's not really a good way to overcome that. You're literally listening to maybe two calls a week when they're taking hundreds. And so knowing that automation could get us to 100% visibility means that now when we have an agent coming into coaching and we say, here are the one or two things that we're going to work on over the next several weeks, that is a true trend. And we kind of have gotten away from the you just pull bad calls comment, because we're listening to all of your calls. The other thing too that happens though when you have more of the manual process and the quality team is that we're all human. And so with that being said, there's unconscious bias. People come from different backgrounds and different experiences. So whereas one conversation can seem pretty straightforward and not really emotional, another conversation can be very emotional. So it was important to us to have a system that could look at everything without bias and give us the true scoring based on the criteria that we thought was important. And it really helped with our agents, because when you have that quality team, there ends up being this us versus them mentality. It's always quality against the agent, an agent against the quality team. And we didn't want to focus our time and efforts on that. We didn't want to have meetings about why quality was important and why the quality team's not trying to beat you up. We wanted to move past all of that and get right to what was really important, which was gaining insights, using a lot of data, and then driving results forward and keeping it very much about what was in front of us and not looking in the rearview mirror all the time.
Yeah. And I want to touch on something you mentioned, because this is what I share with our customers when we talk about auto QA, which is there is a human aspect to this, right? Which is there will be days where, we just have great days. And some mornings we just have really, really bad mornings, and it ends up, impacting the rest of your day. I'll tell you on a personal basis, like if I can get my kid like up, brushed, breakfast done, like lunch ready to go, and all of that goes so smoothly, it impacts the rest of my day and how I perform. But at the same time, if we run into challenges and we run into crying and all these things that can happen that's outside of our professional world, it does impact our day and ultimately how we perform. I can also tell you, there are certain times in the year where I'm very happy, in certain times where I'm just, not so happy. And so, a week before Thanksgiving is my favorite time in the world, because you have Thanksgiving coming up, you get to meet everyone, and then you have the winter holidays coming up. And so, someone can also have a bias around that, where maybe they score calls a little more leniently, right? But maybe it's summertime and it's dreadful and ACs aren't working, and you're extremely hot, and that impacts how you score calls, and ultimately impacts agents and their overall performance and job evaluation. So I love that you mentioned the human element. I think that's so important to consider, because when you have 100% visibility, you actually move out these outliers and you can look at true performance.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Akeem. And I work for a pet insurance company. However, really, my business is a people business, and so my product are my agents in my department. And so you're right, they do. You can have a bad day, but when you're looking at so much data, that one bad day isn't necessarily going to write you off for that month. You're not going to have a horrible performance review just because you're a human being, and we all go through stuff. So this also did give us that ability to not worry about the one bad call somebody might have. Of course, depending on the severity of it, we might have to, but it gave us the ability to look at things holistically and understand that people are going to have bad days, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, this is the human element of automation, and this is where it really, really helps. So thanks for sharing that. I know you have one more benefit that you wanted to share, which is being able to share your insights outside of the call center. And so can you walk us through some of that?
It's very important that we were able to do this. So I'm sure many people can agree when I say the customer contact center is always kind of the department that people know will be there to pick up the pieces when things go bad. And so we wanted to make sure that we could have data and insights and bring that to key stakeholders throughout our business and even outside of our organization. So from like a marketing perspective, as an example, a lot of times marketing will try new things and they'll just go to market and start offering different offers, and sometimes customer service knows and sometimes we don't, and nobody knows how that's going to impact our volume. And so we were able to go back to marketing. They wanted to do a refer a friend, and they said they were going to send out some 30,000 emails all at once. And so I was able to talk to them and said, well, let's build a moment inside of Observe. Let's send out maybe 5,000 emails, and let's see what the volume does. And we did that, and we were pleasantly surprised that we did get some additional policies sold that way. And even more pleasantly surprised that it had zero impact on our business. So then I was able to give the green light without any sort of concern that maybe I didn't look at enough data or maybe we didn't look at the right area, to tell the marketing team, refer a friend is a great channel for you guys to use, and you can do it whenever you want because there's no impact to my team. Of course, after they sent out 30,000, I think we had 2 calls, but again, that's not a big deal for us. But I was able to identify that even after the 30,000, went back to the marketing team and said, now I can tell you we've had 2 calls. And I was able to find that with a click of a button. So being able to provide that sort of insights to marketing was huge. And now we sit at the table with marketing and not an afterthought. They come to us and they want to know, what insights we can provide and what we're hearing from our customers. The next one is pinpointing issues. So again, I mentioned that Figo is a technology-first company. That was our claim to fame when we entered the market. So we do have an app, and we rely heavily on that app working because that's where people can manage their policy, update payment information, and submit claims. It's important that when something is happening with the app, that the technology team knows about it very quickly. And what I've seen happen, not only at Figo, but with call centers that I've been in for my entire career, is you'll have agents that might get 1 or 2 calls and they think it's not a big deal, and that it's not a perpetual issue. And then a couple of days later, you find out that this was a huge issue and nobody's looking at it, and you're scrambling. So with Observe.AI, I'm able to look across the entire team and say, yeah, one agent may get 1 or 2, but I'm seeing that every agent has gotten 2 or 3 calls on this, and so this is a bigger issue. And supply that to our technology team so that they can get working on bugs and get those fixed before they become an essential part of focus for our brand. Lastly would be client feedback. So we do have a couple of partners that we work very closely with, and they also do marketing to try to bring volume in through their marketing channel. We had, again, another email that was going out, just over 60,000, so even a larger email. We had gone through this with this partner a couple of times, so we're fairly used to what that meant for us, which is a lot of overtime, all hands on deck sort of mentality. This specific time, though, they had accidentally left our number on another company's ad. And so we very quickly started to receive calls for this other company. And once we saw 1 or 2, I was able to go in and analyze our calls for that day and see kind of what was happening. We alerted them, and they changed it before all the emails went out. But they came back to us and they said, hey, in the next week or so, could you tell us what the impact was to your business? And I was able to tell my contact, well, hold on just 1 second, and I'll tell you right now. And I went into Observe, and I did some quick typing around, and I went back and I said there was 8 calls. And she's like, how did you, that was very quick. And I was like, yeah, that's one of the great things about Observe.AI and the tool that we use is I can give you this information now, and it's not going to take me a week or 2 to kind of sort through the volume that we had and figure it out.
That's amazing. Well, one thing that stood out when you talked about the marketing effort story was you're very, very data-driven when it comes to some of these efforts that are taking place beyond the contact center. And being data-driven ultimately leads to better customer experience. And so the feedback you get and what you can see and observe and ultimately figure out, this is something we should pursue or something we shouldn't pursue. I think it's the most prudent way to go about it. So thanks for sharing that. I also loved how you mentioned that you're now sitting at the same table as marketing or as strategy and ops or any of these other teams within Figo Pet Insurance or for any company for that matter. But I think that's amazing because it really elevates the game. And ultimately, you're taking your voice of customer and bringing it to the rest of the organization's key strategy teams to help make certain decisions. And so those are the 2 things that really, really stood out. Thanks for sharing that.
Absolutely.
This is also great. And personally, I love how you're able to double click into each one of these benefits and share examples. I'm sure it's extremely helpful for our audience as well. But now that we have context on this amazing story, I'd love it if you could please review the results that you have, and that way we come full circle with where I kicked it off.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to. So again, the key driver for us to go to auto QA with Observe.AI was the ability to have that 100% visibility into our interactions with our customer. Going to my executive team to tell them, by the way, we're going to be able to have more data and save over $500,000 a year was very impactful to that team. And then to take it even one step further and tell them that we're going to be able to do that with a lot less time, so that 27,000 hours saved. It just is a win-win. And my leadership team was super excited about that. And my agents are equally excited about what we're able to accomplish because of it. So, this quote, I really love this quote, and it's very true. As I said in the last slide, I'm tapped on the shoulder way more than I ever was before, because every single facet of our business, technology and marketing, compliance, our legal team, is using tidbits of Observe.AI and the power of data to drive our decisions and to know what we should ask for when we're going back to the DOIs to submit for new rates and things of that nature. So whenever somebody is curious about what our customers think, we're really providing that data and the analysis work. And it's not just somebody's opinion on what they think might actually be happening in the market. We don't have time in such a fast-growing market to just have a matter of opinion. We have to be sure that we're making decisions based on actual data.
Yeah. Well, I love the quote too, but I also love how you said that you love your own quote. I think that's it's a great little flex there. I appreciate that. So as we're kind of wrapping up the story, one thing we want to leave the audience with is some key learnings, and as many of them are in the midst of leveraging automation. And so, what really stuck out to you that made a true impact for you?
Yeah, so the change management and getting alignment. So as I just mentioned, the first thing I wanted to do is make sure that if I was going to go down this technology route, I wanted to have the backing of our executive leadership team. And so I did go to them with the ROI and showed them the cost savings and showed them the time savings. We knew that it was important for us to be the leaders in the market. And so when you're dealing with insurance, it is heavily regulated. So our product offerings is not really where we're going to make a big difference in the market. We are going to be having a competitive advantage based on our customer experience. And so customer experience is something that's very important to us. But you have to make sure that you have your whole executive leadership team there. And then also managing the change. And so we spent several months introducing this into our system. And the beginning was us just kind of getting the moments created and aligning with what we thought was important to us. But then we even gave our agents, a book to success. This is exactly what you need to do in order to have, top-notch performance, and not just based on what we think you should do, but based on the results that we're seeing from our customers. And so it was very well received by our agents. And they have a cheat sheet, so to speak, on how to make sure that they have great customer experiences and great quality scores. We also were sure that we outlined our business KPIs, like what was important to us, going back to the cancellations and the customer experience, what was important to us, and then we aligned our QA to match that. So if those were the things that were going to drive our organization and our business forward, how do we monitor each interaction, and what are the triggers that we know will drive those business critical KPIs for us? We also, with that, there's this, what if it doesn't grade right? Or what if the data is not exactly what I was looking for? You have so much flexibility with Observe. If you create a moment based on what you think it should look like and how you think it's going to behave, and you find that you're not really getting the results you expected, it's so easy to look across and analyze and say, well, this is why, and either make a change to the moment to start honing in on what you're looking for, or make a process change with your staff so that way you start getting the results that you need. And let's not forget, if I had a quality team and I was looking for some of these insights and what was going to drive business KPIs, and I asked a few individuals to go listen to calls for a very specific reason. For one, they're not going to be able to get through 100% of our calls. They're going to have to decide to listen to maybe a percentage or two. And then for two, I have to, instead of me calibrating with one machine and saying, this is what I want you to look for, I now have to calibrate it with two human beings. And I have to make sure that what I am looking for, they are aligned with, and they are seeing or hearing the same thing that I hear. And again, we all have unconscious bias, and we have different experiences that come through. And so it's important that the data we're getting is real, honest data that isn't being interpreted by anyone one certain way or another because of the backgrounds. And then lastly is once you kind of have these measurements in place, once you decide like this is what we're going to be looking for, stay true to that. It's so important that when you're building and designing your evaluation forms and your moments in Observe.AI and then moving into automation, that you spend the time there. It's okay if it's not perfect at first. Reiterate. But what I can say is that for us, it was, reiterations happen very quickly. If we thought we had it right, we would put it into a testing environment. We would let calls go for just a week or two and have thousands and thousands of results to be able to say, no, we need to change this. And again, it takes, I wouldn't dare make a change with my, QA teams in the past unless we had 6 months worth of data. And so we're able to make changes in 2 weeks versus 6 months. And that speaks to the power of automation with Observe.
Yeah, I mean that last point. You tout how Figo is a technology-first company, but what the automation really helps you here with is being nimble and being able to make changes to the business really quickly and stay ahead of competition, stay ahead of customer requests, etc. But I want to dive into the change management piece. Because I come from customer success, I have a background in change management consulting. I think it's so critical that you touched on a couple points that I want to highlight. And so if you think about the key pillars of change management, it's number one, it's about driving awareness. Number two, it's about education. And number three, it's about reinforcement. I think you did a great job in kind of highlighting all of them. On the awareness piece, I think it's extremely critical to get executive level leadership, senior leadership level support. And so thanks for highlighting that and how you approach them. I think that's at the end of the day that's going to help you move a lot quicker in terms of getting adoption and getting engagement and actually starting to see true results in there. So you got me excited when you started talking about change management, because I think it's relevant regardless of any tool, any platform you bring in. Change management is extremely, extremely important. So thanks for sharing that with us today.
My pleasure.
All right. And with that, we wrap up our incredible story with Figo Pet Insurance and the Observe team. There's lots of learnings and a couple of key insights you can take away from their experience and see how you can incorporate them into your contact center ops. And so with that, let's jump into Q&A. We'd love it if we could get some questions from the audience and share some of your experiences as well. Helen, thank you so much for the kind words. All right. Ken, we have a question here from Johnny. What are some of the cost-effective solutions or alternatives for smaller companies that want to take advantage of automation and conversation intelligence, but may not have a large budget for it?
I mean, I can take some of that for sure. I think, when you sit back and you look at developing a team and having to train and getting them all aligned and calibrated. I'm going to go back to the money that we saved by automation. I don't have a team of quality associates listening and evaluating calls. So for us, we were a very small company. When I joined Figo, there were 12 people on the customer experience team. It was a startup company at the time, and we didn't have a very big budget. But when you put pen to paper and you start budgeting out how much is it for a quality team and for all of the effort that goes into that, and compare it to how much is it for the automation and getting use of something like Observe.AI, what you find is that it's actually cheaper and more cost effective to go with that automation. And then you reap all the benefits of having the automation, the data, the insights, the visibility into what's happening in the market. So honestly, from my perspective, one of the main driving factors, and especially when I went to our COO with this, his first question to me was, "This sounds expensive." And then we worked through the cost, and he said, "This doesn't seem as bad as I thought it was going to be." And so, I actually think automation is more cost effective.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, Ken. I mean, that was perfectly said. And I'll share my perspective just from our conversation today, right? Which is two things. Towards the end, you talked about being able to make decisions a lot quicker. Whereas previously, not having enough data, you required almost 6 months to make a thoughtful, data-driven decision. And with AutoQA, you're able to make these decisions within 2 weeks because you have a plethora of data, a big sample set, and it's truly representative of what customer calls and interactions are. And so I think that's one thing, Johnny, is there's definitely a cost to the solution, but the ROI is much greater, right? Being able to be nimble. And Ken, you mentioned how Figo Pet Insurance was a startup. I still think it's a startup with the way you all are operating, right? I know it's grown significantly, but startup is a mindset, and being able to move quick, make decisions quick, that comes when you have systems in place that can drive automation. I think the other piece is the example you gave with marketing and how you were able to do a test sample, understand what customers are, how they're going to interact, and then actually use that now to go wide with your entire customer base. And I think it gives you an opportunity to really drive additional growth for your company. And it sounds like, Ken, that's exactly what you did.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said.
So Johnny, appreciate the question. Thank you. Philip, thank you so much for the kind words there. Hunter, I see you have a question here, which is Ken, this one's definitely for you. I would love to hear how you set up your moments to identify reasons for cancellation.
Yeah, so the moment set up for that was to first identify in the conversation some trigger words, right? When a customer calls in to cancel, they're going to say cancel, or I want to cancel my policy, or cancellation. So that was the first thing that we did, and that was to identify the calls where that was present. We also created a secondary moment that had a list of all the reasons we could ever think of that we would ever hear why somebody wanted to cancel, whether it be financial, or I found a cheaper price, or it's being offered by my employer, because pet insurance is now becoming very quickly an offer from a lot of employers as part of your full benefits package. And so that was, we were able to combine those two things together to really understand, A, how many cancellation calls do we truly get? And then B, what the cancellation was. And then we took it one step further, and we created a moment that would measure if a save attempt was made. So using language that we knew is natural to use when you're overcoming an objection. And so those are the three moments. that we have that we kind of use in tandem to understand our cancellations and where that's going. So that's, you've got to, when you're thinking about these things, it can be difficult to put the moment together at first because you have to think very hard about how you speak. And, we speak a lot. So I don't often think about how I say things or why I say things the way I say them. And so it take some time to get in that mindset of really breaking down conversations and what triggers you to say something and what is the word that you would use. But once you get the hang of it, you can create moments very rapidly and with great success. One thing we didn't really talk about a lot is the accuracy portion of Observe.AI. So I can tell you today that our auto QA evaluation form is over 90% accurate in its scoring. And that is something that you will never get using a team of quality management team or supervisors. They're never going to be calibrated to a 90% or greater. And so we now have that. We have that accuracy rating that a lot of people strive for their entire career to get to.
That's amazing, Ken. We have another question here, actually two of them that are, there's maybe two parts to it, and kind of getting me excited because some of it is, being very data-driven. So question from Helen, or maybe we'll start with Rodney's first, and then we'll move to Helen's. But Rodney is asking, how important is sentiment in auto QA? And then the second part to it, which is Helen's question, is how did you correlate customer sentiment to it?
Yeah, so one of the built-in features with Observe.AI is the ability to measure the customer sentiment. It understands by what it's hearing if the customer seems happy or angry, and so that's a built-in feature. And so when I say that we were looking at sentiment along with cancellations, we did just that. If we had a cancellation call and we saw throughout the transcript of the call that the customer was not very happy, that drove us to dig a little bit deeper, because typically that's a problem with either our product or with how we have serviced the customer in the past. Believe it or not, people will cancel a policy and still be in a good mood. It happens, and that could be people that it's being offered by their employer. And we also found very quickly that if a customer is canceling because of an offer from an employer and the sentiment was positive, in our mind, that is not a controllable instance, and we're not going to focus on that. Those cancellations are part of doing business, and all we can do is provide the numbers for that so that our outside sales team can start working even harder with employers so that we're the choice for employers to use. So that is how we use the sentiment. We really added that along with the moments to determine this cancellation call was either controllable or not controllable, and not just based on the cancellation reasons that you'd see in a policy management system, which would probably say cancellation and the reason would be cost. Well, that's, you would consider all of those controllable, change the policy parameters. But we're able to look at Observe.AI and say that one really wasn't controllable, and we don't have to count that as a loss necessarily.
Well said. We have a question here from Pam, which is, how long did it take to reach this end state of being fully automated?
Yeah, I'm going to give you kind of two dates because we got to automation, I would say within about 7 or 8 months, auto QA was turned on. We then did some iteration, and we did some change management practices, right? Where once we felt good about auto QA and the evaluation form and what we were seeing, we then needed to share that with our supervisors and then our agents. And to all in totality, it probably took us to have agents looking and realizing what this was. I would say that was probably 9 or 10 months. But that is, you're talking about fully turned on, and people using, when I say people, frontline agents using the information that they're getting in there to change kind of the behavior of their conversations. So it was really a very quick timeline to get to automation. And that was, I say, you know, the 7-month mark was literally from start of the relationship with Observe.AI. So as soon as we were just getting things implemented to full on automation was about 7 months.
Yeah, we definitely did a big bang approach and just went with everything at once, Ken. Pam, I'll give you my perspective as I lead our customer success team here at Observe. You know, it can vary. And what we try to do is understand your business needs.
Looks like we may have lost Akeem for a moment.
Get you there a lot sooner. All right, Ken, we have another question here. Looks like it's Isabella. And she says, thanks for providing these insights so far. Perhaps I missed this part on the discussion when you were talking about your calibrations and auto score metrics. Did you also touch on the acceptance for margin of error? And if so, can you talk more about that?
Yeah, you know, we had aligned, and when I say we, I'm talking about Figo and Observe.AI had aligned on what margin of error we would deem acceptable. We were going to be happy with an 80% margin of error because if you look at calibrating a QA team and things like that, it's not unheard of to see, you know, 80% as a calibration score. Actually, I feel like that's a really good calibration score. So we did the same thing with Observe.AI. Even though we aligned on that calibration score, that didn't stop my team from continuing to make finite changes to the way the moments are being triggered to ensure that we got even a higher accuracy rating. And I should have done my due diligence and looked at the last month of our evaluation score and tried to get our accuracy percentage before this. But as I said, we were over 90% the last time I checked, which was looking at November information in December. And we continue, even though we're above 90%, we are always going back to the drawing board and saying, you know, here are some examples of where this moment didn't pick up what we wanted it to pick up. How can we think about what is being said or why it's being said? We bring agents in and ask their opinion on it. We bring supervisors in and ask for their input. But then we make very, very fine changes to those moments to just keep increasing the accuracy. We're never going to be at 100%. But when you're looking at so much data, 90% accuracy is I feel a lot more comfortable knowing we're 90% accuracy with all of this, you know, 100% of our insights, than being maybe 80% accurate, only looking at 2% of our conversations. So we're in a much better place than we could have asked for.
Well, Ken, I'll say this, you're a natural at this because you also answered Helen's question and she was talking about what do you do when something's not captured. So thanks for touching on that. I agree, like business evolves, customers, and when they call in and what they're asking about, what they have objections about, et cetera, it should always evolve. And the good thing is, you know, our customer success team is here to work with you and to help you make these adjustments over time. And so, Ken, thanks for touching on that as well. All right. I think we're very close to time. Do we have one or two more questions? All right. Diana is asking, how do you determine the accuracy percentage?
Yeah, so is reporting that we look at. So when you create moments, those moments are tied to evaluation questions. And there is a process that you go through in which Observe.AI will evaluate all of your interactions, but it will not submit the form. And so our teams spent some time going through and basically calibrating the machine. I had one individual specifically. This was the only test that they did for several months because I wanted it to be laser focused. And they would just go in and say, this is what Observe.AI says that this should be evaluated like, and here's what I think. And so as you do that, you tell Observe.AI, no, I don't agree with how this is scored, and we start getting all of that data too. So that way we can go back into the moment and say, okay, we now know that the reason this didn't trigger the way we wanted it to was natural language kind of tells us that these two words sound like they're always being said separately versus together. And so we change just that little bit in the moment, and all of a sudden you'll see it jump from 60% accurate to 75% accurate. So these small little tweaks that you make by calibrating with Observe and listening to why the scored word scored is how you get to the really high accuracy percentages.
Dan, I think that's a great question, and I'll add to what Ken said, which is what we've seen as we continue to roll out auto QA with a majority of our customers is we typically go through 3 rounds of calibration, which gets us to about 90% or more in terms of accuracy. I think it's we've been fortunate where we got to 90+% sometimes around like with 1 or 2 rounds of calibration, but average is around 3. And that's what the customer success team is here to work with you on. I think the other piece is we also have speech analysts on our team. And so if you need assistance, we can actually come in, help listen to calls, help come up with the phrases that you need to consider and continue to drive a high level of accuracy. All right. Well, Ken, we are very, very close to time here. So thank you so much for managing it so well with me. For our audience here, if you're interested in learning more, please feel free to reach out and ask for a demo. If you're a customer already, your CSMs are here for you. Just let us know how we can help. As mentioned earlier, we'll be sending out a recording and resources after this webinar. I want to thank you so much for letting us be part of your day today. And Ken, I can't thank you enough. We absolutely love you and the Figo Pet Insurance team. You've been gracious hosts when we come on site. You were wonderful here to help us today and really just help us understand auto QA, how it worked in your environment, what were some of the challenges, how you overcame them, and ultimately what results it led to. So thank you for being my partner in crime today, and we'll be in touch soon.
Always a pleasure to spend some time with you guys. Thank you so much, Akeem.
All right. Bye, everyone.